Perfect.
Hi, everybody.
Okay, we're good. Everyone, as I said, the group will be small this week because it's a holiday break and but we're gonna keep going strong either way. Okay. Olga, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so happy and we're so lucky that we have you. If you're able to, please just tell us about yourself. That would be great. And we're going to get started right now. Okay. And we just want to tell you the group is small today, but we're going to be sharing this video. So as we share it, we're obviously going to get bigger turnout. I want to tell you, we will eventually have over 100 families per webinar. We just, again, it's a holiday break and we wanted to get started right away. So we're tiny and mighty, but this group will grow very quickly as we continue. So we're looking forward to this growing, and we just want to remind you, these are fully free webinars in partnership with Forest Hills High School. We really love your school. It's near and dear to our hearts. This is an amazing community, and we're so thankful to be here to partner with you. Without further ado, these are great webinars. We will be recording today. We will share this video, and we will be sharing all the tips for an hour. And after that, we will be getting a much larger turnout. Okay, take care. Bye.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Frances Kweller, for that welcome. I'm going to take a few minutes to introduce myself, and then we'll jump straight into today's topic, this week's topic, which is navigating the Common Application. So my name is Olga. I've been working with Frances for many, many, many years now. A little bit about myself is I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I'm a daughter of immigrants, which I'm very, very proud of. And I have been kind of the first in my family to navigate, the education system over here. And I graduated a specialized high school back in 2016. And then I went to Macaulay Honors BAMD program for college and then medical school, which I am now graduating this May. And I'm going to be starting residency in July, which is crazy. And I've known Frances way before medical school, so that's very, very crazy. I'm very happy to be here. More than happy to provide my advice. And like Frances has said, we've hosted webinars with over 200 parents. So you guys have a special treat today where we have a very, very small group. So if you have any individualized questions, I can more than likely answer things specific to your concerns. I'm going to try to keep this generalized as this is just an introduction. And what we'll do is I'll provide you guys some notes on various aspects of the Common App, and then I will share my screen and actually show you an inside look of what the Common App website looks like. I just made my own kind of blank account. And we'll be able to look at it, go through the different components of the website, how to add and subtract different colleges, and what is all the information that you will need, and the timeline that all of that will take as you kind of start navigating this journey for your kids. Okay, so no further ado, like I said today, our topic today is navigating the Common Application. So what is the Common Application? It is an online application that allows you to apply to most colleges. So almost all colleges use the Common App. There are some that do not. So if you're interested in state or city schools, there's a separate CUNY and SUNY app, which will have a different webinar on at a different time. And if you're interested about schools on the West Coast, they also use kind of a separate program. But a majority of schools use the Common App. And I think almost every single student that I've worked with in the college application, and myself when I applied to college, and my siblings, everybody uses the Common App. So at least one or probably more schools that your kids will be applying to will go through the Common App. Now, the Common Application is one application that you send out to multiple different universities. So how that works is you have your Common Application, which is a list of your demographics. So you'll have to input a bunch of information on there. That's demographic information, a list of your experiences, kind of like a resume. Your high school transcript will be attached to it. Your SAT scores will be attached to it. Parent/legal guardian information will all be attached to that one application. And then there will also be a Common App essay attached to it, which is a 650-word personal essay, and there's different prompts. And all of that is amalgamated into one application. And then you're able to add colleges and you send that one application to multiple colleges. So kind of expedites the process and prevents you from having to repeat, the same exact information every time you apply to a new school. Now, that being said, schools also have their additional writing supplements. So not everything is completely separate from the common application. Sometimes you will have to add an extra writing supplement depending on the school that you apply to. So filling out your common application takes time and it requires several materials. So you need access to a bunch of things as you're filling out this application. So to kind of make your life easier, let's make a list of things that you should start compiling before you even go into a common application. So I think the first kind of helpful piece of information is that we should collect a bunch of your information. So once you actually sit down to fill it out, it's not like you start and then you realize you don't have most of it. So first thing that you do need to do is you need to collect info and have access to info. So this will include a copy of your child's high school transcript, a list of any activities, like extracurricular activities, a list of any jobs you've held, family responsibilities, any extra things that you would want to include in your application for schools to get to know about you. And not just a list, but a few words trying to highlight or explain what those different activities were as well. So my biggest recommendation for when you're kind of preparing as a family for a student to apply to college is to start having these conversations as dinner topics, right? So start thinking about broad themes that you would want to highlight about your child in their college application. So some themes, and it's very dependent on the student, and it depends what their, extracurriculars are or interests. But a common theme that many kids have is, for example, participation in sports or musical inclination if they play any sort of instrument, or service. Some kids love to volunteer and give their time to different things. So try to think of 2 to 3 big themes and then try to think of different activities that the kids have done over their high school years that fit below those themes. So that way you create kind of a holistic application with themes that will subconsciously communicate, to the different admissions committees what your important things are that you're trying to highlight. And it presents an organized application instead of a bunch of random activities. It's not just about the quantity, right? You want the application to be kind of like well put together. You want all the pieces to fit. So this is the kinds of things that we would start thinking about that you would eventually need to input into the Common App. And importantly, they don't want a whole essay about, for example, you playing chess for the last 10 years or you being on the swim team in high school. They want a few characters explaining what your specific role is on that team. So what did you contribute to the team by being on the swim team, right? Were you the captain? Or did you teach younger kids how to swim as part of service? Or highlight something personal about the kid within that activity, or at least start that thought process as you're thinking of the different activities and reflecting on everything that the kids have done over the last 3 years or so. And you're thinking about how to frame it and how to explain it. So I'm going to put a big star here because this is really a huge part of the application that I think makes a really, really big difference. Other aspects or information that you will need to collect is test scores. plus dates. So this will include obviously SAT, ACT, and the SAT subject tests. And again, this is all personalizable depending on what each specific student took and when. You will also need parent/legal guardian info. And this is pretty specific, so you will need to know the level of education of each parent, when they graduated, which school they graduated from which year. It gets pretty specific, so it's important to have that information accessible to you so you are able to input all of that. They will also ask about sibling information, so I'll also add that here. And if a sibling is in school, which higher education they're in, when they're graduating, all of that information is important as well. And then you will also need academic honors/achievements. So a list of any honor societies that the kids have gotten into, like the big one is NHS or National Honor Society. Any awards that they've gotten. Some of it might be too early for these things, depending on which year your child is in. Usually these things will start rolling around at the beginning of your senior year, or at the end of your junior year. So it might be a little bit too early now, but just recognize to save all those emails, save all those awards. If there are some previous awards from years before, or accolades that you forgot about, you have to dig up the pictures, look up the dates, go back in your email to find it, all that kind of administrative stuff to get organized and make sure that you're able to highlight all the kids' honors and achievements and list them all throughout this application. So that's a giant step of it. That's kind of the first step to kind of get us organized and just start thinking about the different things that we will need. And after you kind of do this step, and the timeline of this is very personalizable again, depending on where your kid is in school right now, like how early it is that you guys are starting this process. This could take months. Just kind of you doing this own reflecting process on your own timeline. Now, eventually it's time to actually create an account. So creating an account is actually pretty easy and intuitive. All you have to do is go on the Common App website. It's commonapp.org. You don't need almost any information. All you need is the child's birth date, and an email and a password, and you can make an account. Parents can also make an account, but I recommend definitely making an account from the child's point of view. And I recommend that parents have access to that account. So have that username and password so that you're able to keep track of what's going on. So this is probably the easiest step. You just have to, gain the courage to actually go forward and do it. So once we make an account, the next step is that we start adding colleges. So this can be a whole webinar in and of itself. How do you pick where you apply to is very, very important. How do you pick how many schools to apply to is also important. So usually when I start meeting with families to start thinking about this process and I do college advising, I think about this in a few ways, right? So there are reach schools, which is like potentially you don't necessarily have the scores or the grades that necessarily meet it, so you're reaching for it, right? You should still apply to at least one or two, but you recognize, you give yourself an honest assessment that that school is kind of a reach. You also have safety schools where you know that your grades and your extracurriculars are more than qualified, and there's 99.9% chance that you will get into that school. So we call those safety schools. And then in the middle, we have target schools. So it's very important when you start adding colleges and when you're starting to consider which schools to apply to, that your list is balanced, right? You don't want to be in a place where all the schools you're applying to are reach. You don't want to be in a place where all the schools are safety, and you definitely don't want to be in a place where all the schools are target, right? Because crazy things happen. I've seen students not get into a safety school that they were more than qualified for. And I've seen students really reach for the stars and get into those reach schools that I personally wasn't 100% confident that they would make it. So you want a balanced list. You want most of your schools to be in the target region, but you want to have a healthy amount of safety schools just in case, healthy amount of reach schools, again, because you want to, expand your opportunity and reach for the best possible institution that's right for you as well. Now, the number is very, very dependent on many things. Number one, applying to these colleges is work, right? So all of these colleges will have extra writing supplements. They will have extra research that you will be required to do. So it will be time consuming, and it is work to apply to more schools. So if you don't necessarily see yourself or your kid attending a school, I wouldn't apply just to apply. Second of all, there is a cost associated with it. So there is an application fee for every single school that you add. Some families may be eligible for that fee to be waived, depending on things like income and other sort of benefits that they might receive. But a majority of people are not eligible for those kinds of discounts. So there is an application fee. So usually I try to recommend to my kids that we apply to approximately between 10 to 20 schools. Now, 20 is the very high end. I usually lean to between 10 to 15. That's comfortable for me. But again, it's a very personalized decision. It depends. I've dealt with lots of different families that are applying on multiple coasts, and that way they're potentially moving, and different personalized decisions come into play. But I'm speaking very generally. So then what you're going to do is you're going to start adding the colleges to your list. And the maximum on their website that you're allowed to add is 20. That doesn't mean you can only apply to 20 schools. That means you can only apply to 20 schools through the Common app. But you can, again, like I mentioned, the SUNY, the CUNY app, the West Coast schools are different applications, excuse me. So 20 schools. There's a list that you can
And
search.
Olga, I just want to confirm you hear me, right? Everyone hears me in the group. I
Yep.
just want to let you know we're going to speak about this, but you're not only applying through Common App. Apply to Common App, 8 or 10 colleges. Apply to CUNY.edu. We're going to have a whole separate webinar on that. Again, you can apply to like 5 schools. Apply to SUNY.edu or Common App, but you can go SUNY 5 schools. And by the way, CUNY and SUNY are free for most of, I think, October. So you don't even pay for these applications. There's no reason why you cannot be applying to 10, 20 colleges. And parents, please remember that you must stay involved in the process. You are welcome to have independent children when they are out of the house. Do not let your kids figure this out on their own. It is very stressful. It is very overwhelming. So just remember, you can apply to plenty of schools. Today, we're talking about Common App, but remember, CUNY.edu, you can easily put 5, 6, 7 colleges through that website portal, and you can put another 5, 6, 7 in SUNY. I'm going to go back on mute, and I just want to remind all the parents, this is a partnership moment with your child. This is bonding with your children. Do not let your kids figure this out on their own. It is way too stressful to do. And we will have 10 webinars, which include talking about different types of applications. Common App is the big fish from all of them, but the other ones are equally very helpful. I'm going to go back on mute.
Exactly. Thank you, Francis, for that addition. So like I said, the way that this works is there's a giant list. The list is searchable and it has filters. So you can also, part of this process, is not definite. You don't go into this necessarily knowing exactly what you're going to apply to. The Common App is a tool that you can also use for research as you start thinking and exploring about which school to go to apply to. You can filter based on the location, like state, country. You can filter based on application deadlines, based on application fees, based on writing requirements, based on application deadlines, distance, anything of that sort. And once you've added all the schools, then you have all of them listed kind of under my colleges. And again, right now it's all kind of theoretical and I'm just trying to introduce you to it. But at the end of this, the last 10 minutes or so, I will share my screen and show you what like an account actually looks like. And we can try to add some schools together so you can kind of see the technological aspect of it. Now, another thing that we want to talk about is that the application doesn't only depend on information from you. It also depends on outside people. So, what I mean by that is usually your kid's school. So you will have to start thinking about things like letters of recommendations. So you want to have a relationship with your kid's high school counselor and teachers for letters of recommendation. So it's really important to start thinking about teachers of recommendation as early as possible. If there's a relationship, a special relationship that your kid has with a teacher, I would ask as early as possible, like never is too early because you never know what can happen. You never know when a teacher will be going away for vacation, when a personal emergency will happen, and you'll have to find somebody brand new. So the earlier that you ask, the more likely it is that the person can work on the letter recommendation as fast as possible. Know that you've already kind of locked them in, so you don't have to worry about it. You can give them an earlier deadline, so you don't have to worry about it the day or 2 days before one of your applications are due. And you also leave yourself room for backup and give the teacher lots of time to start reflecting and, kind of rummaging their brain of important memories to really write you an outstanding letter of recommendation. So this is something that I always recommend. And honestly, I wish that even for the stage of academic career that I'm at right now, that when I was applying to residency, I asked people for letters of recommendation earlier because it's always stressful when somebody didn't submit a letter of rec, and you're ready to submit your application, you're just waiting on that and it doesn't look good. So, and that being said, outside of the teacher, it's also important to think about anyone else that may know your kid well. So that could be like an outside coach, any other personal extracurricular, faith leaders that you would want to include and also ask them for a letter of recommendation as well. Now, the next big thing that I want to talk about is staying organized as you understand what you need to apply for every single college that's on your list. So we can call this number 5, we can call this understanding requirements. So every single college has unique requirements. These will include for deadlines. So not every single college will have the same deadline. Most of them are late December to early January. I've seen as far into as the first or second week of January. So the deadlines are different. Colleges also set their own application fees. There are different personal essays or writing supplements. They also have different requirements regarding adding in a portfolio, especially if your child is applying to art schools or has any talents within art or architecture or design, things like that. They also set their own requirements regarding recommendation letters. So some schools require 2, some of them require 3, some of them want a science and a non-science teacher, or math and non-math, depending on the program that your child is interested in. So all of that is really important to keep in mind. So it's important to do this early so then you can tailor what you need to do depending on the schools that you're interested in. And then the last one that I already verbally mentioned is writing supplements. So how do we stay organized? So what I recommend is once you have your list of colleges, you go on each college's website and you look for all of these different things and you make yourself a Google Doc, and you make a table, a good old table. And in your table, you include all of these aspects and you write it down for yourself and you write out the actual writing supplements for every single school. So what happens then is you can see, oh, wait, this is due first, right? You can hierarchy and prioritize what you need to do when. And the other thing that helps you with is making sure that you have all the information you need. Maybe you need extra recommendation letters. Maybe you need a math recommender that you didn't think that you would have to ask. And finally, it would also help you see the repetitiveness, right? So a lot of the schools ask very similar questions, why us? Or why are you interested in studying mathematics or science or climate or whatever it is that you're interested in? Please describe your interests. Tell us about yourself. What's a hardship or a challenge you've overcome? These are all very common questions that schools intersect on. So what you can do is you can start realizing, what questions do I have to start thinking about? Which ones are the ones that repeat over and over and over again? And I 100% recommend making a table because it's very, very, very hard to stay organized with all of this if you don't have it all in front of you. Just using the Common App website is not enough. Because it's not organized enough. You don't get to see it all on one page. So this is really, really imperative that you guys do this. And once you start to get organized, the next aspect of this is to start planning essays. So like I alluded to, a lot of things will repeat, but you will need planning, organizing, drafting that will make all of this a lot more manageable. There will always be the Common App essay. So this is something that you absolutely have to write. Everybody will have to write. In general terms, this is just a personal essay, right? Like you can talk about a challenge you've overcome, basically anything personalized and generalized about who you are and what you want the school to know. And then after this, there's going to be college specific questions / writing supplements. And these could include things like why our college. They can also include fun, quirky questions like if you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be? Or if you were a meal, what would you be? Or what's your favorite music? So they can ask anything really from A to Z. They're pretty creative, and it really depends on the school and the type of vibe that the school is kind of going for. So planning them can take quite some time, but that's why it's really important to start with getting organized and then moving towards the space of planning the essays. Now, I will recommend that you start thinking about the Common App essay. Again, everything should kind of come together. So like I was mentioning early on, you think about themes in your application, and these are the sort of themes that you want to highlight through your activities, through your resume, and then you want to highlight sort of similar things within your personal essay and your writing supplements. So the beginning of the process would be to make an account, start exploring colleges, and then thinking about those themes. And then eventually we're going to get more and more and more specific as we know exactly which schools we're applying to and what questions we'll be answering. And then finally, the last step of this will be to actually execute all of this and then submit your application. And obviously sounds a lot easier when I do this little talk in 30 minutes. It's a lot of effort. But this is kind of a good grounding webinar to kind of start just getting your thoughts thinking in the right direction. So I'm going to share my screen in a second and show you guys what the actual common application looks like, what their website looks like and all that. But before I do that, I want to leave some time to see if you guys have any specific questions on the types of things that I've been talking about thus far. So if anybody has any questions, you're free to put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
I'll raise hands. Hi, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Okay, for the letter of recommendation, how many letter of recommendation do you need usually?
Usually it's 2, but there are certain schools that require 3, and like I mentioned before, require them to be in particular subjects, depending on the program that your kid might be interested in applying to. So because I, for example, was applying into a BAMD program, I had to have one of my recommendations come from a science teacher. I also helped a kid this last year who was applying into like a math engineering program specifically, and it was required for him to have somebody from the mathematics department write him a letter. So usually it's 2 from any subject, but if you have any specific kind of program that you're really interested in, it could change.
Okay, and also, if my daughter is a junior right now, when she start asking for letter of recommendation?
So I usually try to say at least like 6 months or so before the actual deadline that you could just ask. And then like the next 2 months, you can just send a reminder email. It could be somebody from her senior year if she really forms a connection with them as fast as possible. In the college process, these applications are usually due around December, January. And if you want to do early decision, it's even earlier. So usually the teachers should come from junior year or before. I would ask towards the springtime of my junior year. So in the coming months is an excellent time to ask, before sort of anytime before June from now.
Okay,
If it's a teacher from before that already knows her, you could go ahead and ask now as early as possible.
okay, thank you.
Of course. Anybody else have questions? All right, so what we'll do with this last portion of our time is I'm going to step out of this screen, so you guys should no longer see these notes, and I will share my screen from my computer. Give me 1 second. Okay. So now you guys should all be able to see this screen. So this is a dummy account that I made just to show you guys kind of what it looks like when you log into the Common App. So important things is whenever you log in, it'll say welcome, whatever legal name that you put. I put my name, Olga. It'll have your email that you signed up with. And it'll give you something called the Common App ID, which is extremely important. And it's required for you to give this to your letter of rec writers eventually, so that they're able to attach a letter specifically to your ID number and your account. Okay, so that's what all this looks like. There's this help bar on the side if you have any questions. And basically the way that I would start is I would start with the college search. So you can start with searching for colleges. If you really have no idea what to search for, you can start looking at filters, right? So depending on the things that are important to you, most students will start in the fall semester, so I would put that in. And then, for example, I know when I was applying to college, distance was important to me. I wanted to stay close to my family. So perhaps we can start with something like this, and we can say, let's say 50 miles within my zip code where I am right now. I'm in Brooklyn, so something like that. And then that'll give you these colleges. Now, that doesn't really help us because it didn't really narrow it down, but you can start narrowing it down as much as you can using these filters. On the other hand, if you have a specific college, you can just go ahead and search. So we can search for Harvard University, for example, or any other school that you are already interested in applying to. Now, once you find a school that you want to add to your list, it's pretty intuitive. You'll just press this add button here. And just like that, it gets added to your list. Now, once a school gets added to your list, it's now under this tab of Harvard, of my colleges. Now, up to 20 schools can be under this tab. So once you've added it, you can then go to each school and you can start learning about that school. and the requirements. So what we have here is some information about Harvard University that I would 100% recommend that you do this for every single college that you're applying to. You check out their website, you check out their virtual tour. On their website will be different sort of things about the school, depending on what your kid wants to study. You can look into the different departments. Usually the universities all have their courses open access available as well. So you're able to look at the different courses that they offer and see like the different majors, the different extracurriculars for students. You could probably organize a tour to actually go and visit. They also have virtual tours. Now, they will also provide you with application deadlines and fees and everything else that they recommend. So right here, they say 2 are required. So 2 teacher evaluations are required, but they will accept up to 3. That's why 1 is optional. So that's kind of how you read this. Other evaluations, they don't require any, but you can submit 2 additional ones. And then they also tell you the writing requirements. So the Common App personal essay, I think, is required for every single school through the Common App. So you will always have to do this. And then they have their own specific college questions. So then you start actually filling out the application, and that's what that looks like. You start answering all these questions as they are applicable to you. And like I mentioned before, there is quite a lot of information for every single school. So you will need to write about your family, your parents, or legal guardians, your siblings, as well as short answers. So this is an example of a question that they're asking us. How will your life experience shape who you are today and enable you to contribute to Harvard? So this is a very, very, very common question that universities will ask you, and it's a good thing to start sort of, brainstorming. They have multiple questions, as you can see here. These are just specific to Harvard. An intellectual experience that is important to you, extracurricular experience that has shaped who you are, how you hope to use your education in the future, and then 3 things that your roommates would want to know about you. And notice that all of these have a maximum of 200 words. So they're not meant to be sort of long form essays. These are all sort of short answer responses. And in addition to this, you will have to do the Common App in itself. So as you add different colleges, they will all show up here, and then it's kind of intuitive. You go through the different sections in each college to fill out that application. And I can add another college. So let's say we're also interested in Northeastern. So we can go ahead and add that. And again, as we open my college list, we just see that it keeps showing up. So the amount of schools that you add will keep showing up. They usually have the same delineations, and you go through each part and you fill out all the specific applications and their specific writing supplements. Now, apart from that, there's also this entire part of the Common App itself, which you don't have to do for every single school. This will automatically get sent to all the schools. So let's go through this. So this will ask you for basic demographic information, such as your name, your date of birth, your address, your contact details, your demographics, so your gender, your sex, pronouns that you go through, if you've served in the Army at all, your race and ethnic background. It'll ask you the number of languages you are proficient in, your nationality as well, number of years that you've lived in the US, your citizenship status, all of these kind of demographic factors. And then whether or not you're eligible for the Common App fee waiver. So once you fill all that out, you go to the next part. This is what I was mentioning before, your family status. You will need information about your siblings and each legal guardian or parent. Then you will move on to education, where you put in your high school information, any breaks, if you've ever stopped your education for any reason, if you've started university before. You then put in your grades, your GPA. So again, you might not have access to all this information, which is why I started the webinar with saying a lot of it is gathering information, knowing who at school, which counselor that you have to talk to accurately understand, is your GPA weighted or not? Does your school do the GPAs or not? Because some schools don't. Your current classes as well. So you report the classes that you're in, for them to kind of get an understanding of what your schedule is like. Any honors that you have to report. Again, any honor society or awards that you've received, if you're on any community organizations, and then finally your future plans, depending what you're interested in. And because the kids are young, there is an option here to put undecided, I'm sure, if you're not sure. And that's completely fine to be undecided. Now, as I mentioned, you'll also need access to your SAT, ACT, and subject tests. That will all go underneath this tab here in testing, where you will put in whether or not you've taken these exams, and then you can self-report the scores. Separately, you will also, through College Board, actually send the scores to each school on your list, but we can talk about that in a separate webinar. But from Common App point of view, it's all self-reporting. And then you get to activities. So this activity part can include anything that the kids do for fun. So hobbies could include volunteering, work, specific family responsibilities. Again, we could learn more together, but to my understanding, that's like more like caretaking responsibilities. Sports, clubs, and anything else. It's pretty open. Any experience that is meaningful to you, you will report the activities. So here, let me show you what that looks like. You will, let's say it's an art activity, and let's say I'm president of the art club. And then you would have to say which organization. So let's say that's just at my high school. So you'd put your high school's name. And then you have to describe the activity, but recognize that the character limit here is very, very small. So start thinking about what meaningful thing. So perhaps I am the one that started this art club in my school, or perhaps I created a new initiative at this art school where we go and we volunteer and I teach little kids how to draw. So something that will highlight who I am as a person outside of this activity. And then you will also have to say how many years you've been participating in this for, how long that you participate in it for, and whether or not this is something that you want to participate in college. So this is kind of what I was trying to allude to before. And I think you can have up to 10 activities, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 9 out of 10. And then finally, you have your writing component, which is your Common App, which is 650 words maximum. So it doesn't have to be all the way 650, but it's just an approximation. So again, this could really be any essay in the world. As you can see, that's an option, but they do have some prompts here that can kind of give you ideas of the types of things that would count as a personal essay, the types of things they want you to think about. So this includes your background, identity, interest, talent, anything that you've learned in terms of challenging yourself or overcoming something. Reflecting on things that bring you happiness or motivation, and any accomplishments that you've had thus far.
And
So all
Olga,
of
if you
these,
could take a moment, can you just put a heart next to the first one? That's my favorite prompt from all of them. So this is by far my favorite. I want to put a heart next to it. Background, identity, interest, or talent. Like this is really like a show off prompt. Tell me about yourself. It's my oh, that's a perfect heart. That is my favorite prompt. So, and like an arrow, put an arrow so people like get the memo. But that is straight up my favorite prompt from all of them because this is an easy one to shine. Go ahead, Olga. I'm gonna go back on mute.
yeah, that one's an excellent one. And the Common App is really the bulk of this application. It's kind of the most time consuming. The other stuff is just putting in. In terms of dedicating your time, I would say the most important is the Common App essay and the list of activities. And for both of those, you really want to take some time to reflect and think about what is important to you in your application and what themes do you want to highlight about who you are and how you want to present yourself to the different schools that you're applying to. And then finally, this is an extra section that used to not be part of this, about how COVID-19 may have impacted your educational journey, your grades, and you are able to share anything specific if this has impacted you in that kind of way. They give you the space to share that. And yes, so in summary, what I think is important is that you guys start thinking about your activities. You start thinking about your common application essay, your personal essay, and you just start exploring this website and looking through the different colleges and start thinking about where you would apply to and gathering information. So what I'll do is I'll stop my share. I'll look to see if you guys have any questions. Somebody put a question in the chat about a junior who has no idea what they want to do. That's most juniors. That's completely fine. Most students do not know what they want to do. And that requires a very personalized conversation between you and your family about what higher education will look like for your child. It doesn't necessarily need to be community college. It just depends what they want to get out of school. So I am a huge CUNY SUNY proponent. I'm a CUNY graduate. I love that it is affordable. I love the diversity that it provides, and I love that it's right here in New York City and that I was very close to my family. And I think that it exposed me to a great education. But that's not necessarily the right decision for everybody applying. There are some people that went to, private schools and they had an amazing experience. So it is a very personalized discussion. And whether or not you know exactly what you want to study doesn't, designate whether or not you go to CUNY, SUNY, community, or private school. I think the biggest takeaway that I want everybody to come out of this session with is just starting to reflect and start these, dinner conversations with your kids, and start exploring as early as possible, because before you know it, it'll be that time. And it's all very overwhelming, but if you spread it out and you start thinking about it early and you start having these discussions with your kids early, your application will only be better for it because you will reflect on it longer. And if you think about it right now, you also have time to start engaging in different activities and spruce up the application a little bit if you feel like you don't have, any meaningful activities to speak about. Which usually isn't true. You're just not thinking about them.
So I also want to remind everyone listening, I just posted the link to the college webinars at Kweller. We're going to share this video. If everyone could take 1 minute to share this link with a friend, because we want to boost the attendance. Obviously, this is a vacation week, so we're not necessarily pushing, but we are going to look to have more participants. We're really lucky. Olga, who is in 4th year of medical school, is hosting webinars 1 to 5. May Rose is hosting webinars 6 to 10. She is a 1st year medical school student at Cornell University on full scholarship. So it's the 4th year versus the 1st year. That's a lot of years I have to keep track of, but I just want you to know that we have some real talent hosting these webinars, okay? Please keep that in mind. With that being said, Olga, thank you for sharing your wisdom. You are such a standout product of the CUNY system. It's really important during times like this, especially times in history like this, that we see good role models, that we see good mentors, that we see what, the future leaders of the world. We're looking at a future physician a few months from now. This will be Olga, MD. Olga, when's your graduation?
May 15th.
Do you believe, everyone? Let's say bravo, bravo. Olga will be an MD. I'm honored to say I knew you when you were in college. So I'm very excited to share that Olga has a tremendous knowledge base and she will be hosting webinars 1 to 5. May Rose will be hosting webinars 6 to 10. And if anyone has questions, look at how nice that is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Samantha, please do us a big favor. Send 5 or 10 friends these webinar links because we do want to grow the webinars. And obviously, we made sure to start them. We're going to keep going strong. So please share. Olga, thank you so much. We can't wait for the next webinar, the next set of topics. Everyone, please go through the Google form here and share it widely. And we will also share this recording so that we get more and more members into every single webinar. And that's it. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you again. Last thing I want to say, if you want a webinar in a different language, oh my God, Olga, would you do this? We can actually host a webinar in Russian, the whole entire hour. We can host a webinar in Mandarin. We can host a webinar in Spanish. So we just want to let you know that if you want, you can simply email us and we will be more than happy to offer this exact same workshop in a different language. Olga, can you do this in Russian for 1 hour?
I'd have to
Maybe.
practice.
So I just want to let you know that we are open to it. I think it would be a really cool experience. We have hosted webinars before in different languages. So parents, please know that this is something that we're happy to do. We just want to check with the demand. We want to check with the request. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate that you are part of this moment, and thank you. All right. Thank you, Olga. Thanks for doing this. We will see you next Thursday. Bye.
Thank you. Take care. I'll see everybody next week. Best of luck.
Good
Good night.
Bye. Bye, everybody.